Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Satdeep Binning. I'm the founder of the Functional Health Institute. I've been in business now for about 17 years, and my passion that is burning bright inside me is to help mom and dads become the best versions of themselves in terms of their health and their happiness, because ultimately what that's going to translate to is a change in our younger generations. If I believe that if we're healthier and happier people, then that influences how we teach and how we raise the little people that are all around us. So that's essentially the problem that my business is trying to solve, is how do we take people who are super busy, because all of us are super busy, and get them to make certain changes in their life that lead to two outcomes. One, they get healthier. And the second is, because they have more time for themselves, they become happier. And I truly believe that happier people pour more of themselves into everyone else, right? And so if we're going to change our future, we're not going to change it ourselves. We're going to have to change the way we raise our children, how much energy we put into them, and where do we steer them in terms of like, how much compassion do you want to raise your kids to have for people that they'll never probably meet, but maybe one day they'll be in charge of a decision that affects their whole life. Right. And so ultimately, that really came into my life, or became an important theme in my life, because it wasn't actually an important theme of my life until my wife told me she was expecting. And, at that time, what I was going through was my own different sicknesses. So I had really poor energy levels. I was fatigued all the time. I used to sleep on a couch in my office for an hour a day. And I had all these digestive problems that no one could figure out. No one could really help me. And so what I started doing was I started accommodating these illnesses so that my life looked normal on the outside. And I was living the dark secret, or dirty secret, of healthcare. Is most, and that secret is that the person you're actually working with to get your health back is usually sicker than you, right? And I became that person. And when my wife told me that, hey, look, like I'm pregnant, we're expecting a baby, I had all the normal emotions of joy, and then I had all the emotions of doubt. Like, am I, an adult enough? Am I strong enough? Am I going to do the right things to influence this child's life? And I remember driving back from the pharmacy when I was picking her up a pregnancy test kit, and there was like a voice in my ear that said, what are you going to do to make sure this baby's born healthy, becomes a healthy person, and lives a life that's better than yours? And it was at that moment, all of these things that I was accommodating in my life, my illnesses, my level of lack of energy, and just a huge amount of fatigue that was just kind of overwhelming me, all of a sudden, I couldn't look past it anymore. I couldn't sweep it under the rug. And so the realization came to me that if I don't actually change something, I'm completely powerless to affect this life that I have not met yet, but it's just an idea brewing in my mind. I won't be able to do what I actually would want to do with this child. And so it was literally the next day I called a friend who was in functional medicine already. And we started working with each other. Within 3 months, I had my life back. Right. And that's what was important to me, was how quickly your life could change. Right. And also it led me to the point where I changed in a positive way so that I could actually influence my daughter to become, or at least to avoid some of the pitfalls I was going through at that time, in terms of my health, and also in terms of like my outlook on the world, right? Probably was a little more bleak then, which, I mean, when you're always that person, it's hard to be happy too, right? And when I really think about how do I want to raise my kids, how do I want them to see the world, is with optimism and abundance and love, which I don't think at that time in my life I was there. And so it allowed me to change. And this mission has become important to me, because if it changed my life, how can it not change everyone else's? was the next question here?
That's absolutely great stuff, Satdeep. And
Okay.
thank you for
Yeah.
sharing a little bit about your journey and why this matters to you. If you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about, what's happened since you've made those changes in your business and what you've seen happen for other people when they make those changes in their business or in their lifestyle, and what's the trickle down effect, as we like to call it.
Yeah. So prior to me going through this scenario, most of my practice was dealing with like elite level athletes. Like I've worked with NHL players and NFL players, CFL footballers, track and field. I traveled all over the world working with the best track athletes in the world. And, it was one of my loves. It was something I loved to do. And until I started really helping people like everyday people overcome these illnesses or chronic conditions that can like decimate their life, and then to see that person get their life back, until that happened, I hadn't found my true love, like in terms of what I want to do with my life. And once that clicked, and once I started seeing what happened to myself happen in other people, I had to make a choice and a transition of, do I still go down this road that I know I'm very good at? But yeah, I get some satisfaction out of it, but am I having the impact in the world I want to have? And so it kind of led me to choose. And that's probably one of the difficult or the most difficult decisions I've had to make, is which one do I go with? Right. And so I went with what's in my heart, was really changing people's lives. And I started to see some amazing success stories. I'll share one that comes right to my mind. And it was of a woman that I knew previously as a chiropractic patient of mine. And she reached out to me after suffering for decades with Lyme disease. And she had, a couple of years previous, gone to some special hospital in the States and spent almost $100,000 in a year trying to get her health back, right? They did everything. They had her hooked up to IVs. She would even keep the line in her arm, come back to Canada, get more therapy here, go back there. And she was gone for about a year. And the saddest part of this story is that when she came back, she was actually worse, right? So you can imagine all the effort and time. And so she reached out to me and said, hey, I'm in this position. I don't know what else to do. Could you help? And I said, well, if I'm going to work with you, there's one difference that we're going to make. And that difference is you're going to have to be active in this solution, because throughout this $100,000, she was just riding in a car, essentially, right? Everyone was promising her, we can fix you. We can fix you. We can fix you. And my message to her was, no, you're going to fix yourself. I can't do the work for you. The only person I can fix is me, but I can teach you the steps, right? And so when she started working with us, I remember when she started, I had to drop off some stuff to her house, and she was so tired she couldn't really even come to the door to talk. And about 3 weeks later, and that was her everyday experience, right? Barely getting out of bed, being in chronic pain all the time. Her thyroid was, a mess as well. And she had all these other things that go along with Lyme disease, right? And 3 weeks later, I'm emailing her, leaving her phone calls to just get an update on how she's progressing. And I'm not hearing back. And I remember checking my emails, a couple of weeks go by. Finally, around the third and a half, fourth week, I get an email response back from her. And she's like, sorry, I've been so busy. I'm feeling amazing. I'm actually taking care of my grandkids. And it was like, what a win. Like I was over the moon, because I was expecting, I completely bailed. I've done nothing. Leave me alone type of message. And it was an important lesson to me, to always just, see what I wanted to see happen in these people. And this woman changed her life around. At 3 weeks, she had more energy. Her pain was almost completely gone. And the beauty of the story is, even after working with me, it's been, I think a year and a half, she was down almost 100 pounds. She went to a life bucket list trip to Egypt. And now she's like, takes care of her grandkids. She's contributing in a way that exactly kind of how I wanted to be able to do in my own life. I got to see this person achieve this And when she started, pretty much had almost no hope of ever being able to do that. Right. And that every time we work with someone and we get those experiences, it changes my life just as much as theirs.
That is absolutely incredible, and it's so inspiring to hear that you were able to be that guiding light, that force of change. And maybe you don't have to be the driver of the vehicle to change the way it's going. Maybe
Yeah.
you really get to be the GPS, or that guiding system for people
Yeah.
to be on the pathway to health, and that's really
Yeah.
incredible. If there's anybody out there listening to this that maybe feels like they're in a similar situation where they've been dealing with chronic illness, or they've been dealing with upsetting symptoms that have been bothering them for quite some time, and they've invested money and they just haven't gotten the results, or maybe it's even gotten worse, what would be a message that you might want to share with them to maybe start shifting in the right direction?
I think that the thing we have to understand is language, right? Sometimes words we use them in everyday sentences, but we don't really know the meaning of the word, right? So for example, if I was to ask you, what's the meaning of the word doctor? What would you just guess?
I mean, my immediate assumption is someone that's supposed to help, right? Like and I grew up with a very Eastern medicinal environment, but so that to me is like the doctor is there to heal you, right? The doctor is the person you go to when you're sick.
Exactly. And so most people, just like you, associate it with being the person who's the healer or is going to do the healing. And actually, the word doctor in Latin means to teach, right? And so the message we need to teach is that nobody is going to heal you better than yourself. You have to stop outsourcing this process of healing. And the thing I try to teach people is that your body is never making a mistake. It's just making outcomes, and the outcomes will always match how you live your life. And so whenever I work with someone, I'm always very clear at the beginning of our journey is to say, listen, if at the end of this journey, you're still living and doing exactly the same things, we have failed, because you have to evolve as a human being to get to the life you actually wanted. You can't live this life and that life at the same time, right? And so it's to empower people, to make them understand that like you're so much more powerful than anyone's ever given you credit for, and to kind of teach them that way so that they understand that it just starts with a decision. How much do you want that life of you feeling amazing and feeling great and contributing to others in a positive way? And when you know how much you want it, it's a matter of, yes, you're going to need some guidance from someone like myself, or there's many other people out there in the world, but the work is still ours, right? We can't outsource the work.
And so, Dr. Satdeep, if someone out there is ready to make that decision, they're ready to start living the life they've been dreaming of and thinking of for years, what would be a great way to get a hold of you, or a great way to make that decision, to make that commitment to starting that journey?
Yeah, on our website, it's www.functionalhealthinstitute.com. And again, that's www.functionalhealthinstitute.com. We offer prospective patients, people who want to ask some questions, a free discovery call. And so they can just select that from the options, and we go through the scheduling process automatically from there. That's a good place to have a starting conversation. I have a resource on our website called Inspired in 25, and it's essentially a 25-day video series where I give you tips and strategies every single day that you're meant to implement, not just listen to and then forget about, but you're meant to like watch the video, implement it, and experience how your life can change so quickly in less than a month. Those are two ways people can just reach out, get to know me better, because I think that's important. But yeah, having that free discovery call is a great advantage, because I think there has to be this conversation of, is this the right person for me? And we always are going to make sure that, if someone does reach out to us, we want to make sure that we're the right fit for them as well, because the last thing you want is to have the wrong fit.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing that resource, especially it sounds like there's some really valuable stuff on your website for people to check out. So thank you guys again for listening. This has been Dr. Satdeep, and yeah, we hope if this resonated with you, or if you think that Dr. Satdeep could help you on your journey, definitely don't hesitate to reach out. So thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for your time.